So let me talk a little bit about families right now and what's happening in the families. There are four basic models of psychology: psychoanalytic, cognitive behavioral, humanistic, existential, and family systems. Family systems therapy is the only one that deals with families. All the other are individual-based models. So when we're talking about families, we should be over in the family systems literature. And up on, I think, the third page there's a little diagram of a healthy transition of a family, post-divorce transition of a family. Families go through a lot of transitions over the course. First one has to do with uniting the couple into a marital unit. Now, if they divorce at that point, before there's a birth of a child, they go back to being individuals. But the moment there's a child born, that's now a family. And divorce does not end the family. The family will always be there once you have a child. Divorce ends the marriage, not the family. And what happens is we go from the intact family structure that was united by the marriage to now a post-divorce separated family structure where the parents are living apart, but that's now united by that child. It's the child holding the family together because of the shared bonds with both parents. And that's that little girl in the soccer uniform. She's holding this family together. But that puts the child in a very vulnerable position. That if there's nasty conflict stuff going through, that's going to rip the child apart. And so that's, as you move down into the third picture there, we get what's called a cutoff family structure, where the child, because there's a conflict between the parents, the child is either in the middle of the conflict and they can't stay there for too long, a year, and then boom, they choose one side or the other in this to get out of the middle of the conflict. And so you get that cutoff family conflict. Cutoff family structure is described by Murray Bowen. He's one of the top people in family systems work. The Cross-Generational Coalition is described by Salvador Minuchin and Jay Haley. These are top-notch experts in family system stuff. This is not new forms of pathology. We know exactly what's going on. So we get this cutoff family structure here. And if you look at that third picture, that's not divorce. That's the death of a parent. A cutoff family, that mother in that third picture is essentially dead. The healthy divorce is that first picture. It's a separated family structure that's united by the child and by the shared love of the child for both parents and from both parents. Another important thing to recognize in that shared love, a lot of people will say a child has the right to love both parents, and that's absolutely true. The child has the right to love both parents. In addition, the child has the right to receive the love of both parents. That's incredibly important for child development, to get the love of both parents. There are four types of parent-child relationship: mother-son, mother-daughter, father-son, father-daughter. All of those relationships are magnificent and important, and none of them are expendable. The mother-son relationship is likely to be the most affectionate. There's a lot of affectionate bonding going on there. And the son is going to use that mother template for his wife. The mother-daughter relationship is perhaps one of the most complex, and that daughter is going to get a lot of gender-related self-esteem and self-identity from that mother-daughter relationship, and she's also going to use that as a template for raising her own children when she becomes a mother. The father-son relationship gives a lot of the male kind of self-identity and self-esteem issues that go forward for this, and helps a young man become a responsible and mature young man. The father-daughter relationship, I've got a daughter, again, one of the most affectionate ones. That's daddy's princess, and she's going to use that as a template for her husband and how to solve things, or how to choose a husband and work with a husband in her own relationship. All of those relationships are important. None of them are expendable. That third picture where we lose a parent, no, that is not healthy for the child. And we must make sure that all post-divorce families have that first picture, that all post-divorce families have that healthy separated family structure. We don't have a choice because it's in the child's best interest. We must accomplish that. The issue as we move to the following page with John Bowlby on attachment theory. The moment we move back to understanding this as an attachment-related pathology, John Bowlby, the king kahuna of attachment back in the 60s and 70s, he first described the attachment pathology, says in that second slide, the deactivation of attachment behavior is a key feature of certain common variants of pathological mourning. It's the inability to process sadness in the family. And then the following quote links, down at the final one, that disturbances in personality create disordered mourning. We turn to the personality disorder people, and Otto Kernberg describes how the narcissistic parent is unable to process sadness and grief, and instead translates it into anger and resentment loaded with revengeful wishes. That the narcissistic and borderline personality cannot process sadness. And so when the divorce takes place, that narcissistic borderline parent, instead of processing the sadness around the divorce, turns it into anger towards the other spouse. And the narcissist is vulnerable to rejection. The borderline is vulnerable to abandonment. And so there's a slight difference in how they will express it. The narcissist, oftentimes you will find a narcissistic husband, a narcissistic male. It tends to be more prevalent in males. And it has a domestic violence feel to it. And oftentimes you will have this narcissistic husband has been kind of berating and demeaning to his wife for kind of years. Finally, she can't tolerate it anymore. She divorces him, and he says, "How dare you divorce me? How dare you have the temerity to reject my magnificence? You'll be sorry you divorced me. I'm going to take what you most love in your world, your children, and I'm going to kill them for you. I'm going to take their love and destroy their love that you have with your children. You'll be sorry you divorced me." Whoa. Whoa. And people are letting him do that. Therapists are letting him do that. The court is letting him do that. And this mom is losing her kid for the years, decades, maybe the rest of her life, because of this narcissistic desire to get revenge on her because she had the temerity of divorcing him. The borderline mom is borderline personality is often associated with sex abuse. So there's a potential that she's been sexually abused as a kid. And so when the divorce happens, and she's afraid of abandonment, she's being abandoned by her ex. So one of the ways she manages her abandonment fears is, I've got the children. You can't abandon me because I've got what you want. I've got the children. And as long as the children love me, I'm not the abandoned one. They're abandoning you. You're the one who's being abandoned, not me. I'm the wonderful parent who never is going to be abandoned. But in addition, when the children go over to spend time with their dad, her abandonment fears activate big time. She's tremendously anxious because they might develop a loving bond with him and then they're going to abandon her. So she gets really, really anxious every time the kids are separated from her. But she doesn't know where that anxiety is coming from. She just knows every time they're with their dad, I'm really anxious. Now, if she has a sex abuse trauma history in her own background, she begins to think dad is abusive of them. There's some sort of threat from dad. Dad's a problem. And so she starts to develop these false beliefs that the children are somehow in danger from dad. And so you get a lot of these allegations into CPS and things of child abuse. And CPS looks at it and says, there's no child abuse here. But she continually maintains this high anxiety state with this. So on the next page, we can look at the family systems kind of thing. Third picture down here, we have Salvador Minuchin. He just passed away recently, a week or so ago. One of the top people in family systems. 1993, he drew a diagram of what this family structure looks like. The cross-generational coalition, in this case, the father and son have formed a coalition against the mother, and you can see the child is above the mother. The child is empowered by this coalition to judge the adequacy of the mother. And so it's called an inverted hierarchy. So now the child is judging the parent. That's weird. Parents judge children. Is your behavior appropriate, inappropriate, and then we deliver punishments or rewards based on our judgment of children's behavior. Here we have the whole world switched on its head. The child is judging the parent and delivering punishments to the parent as to what, because the child is being empowered by the narcissistic or borderline parent. And then the second diagram there is that can result in that cutoff family structure, where the mother is now cut off from the kids. The way this is accomplished, final quote there about psychological control. Psychological control is an established psychological construct in professional psychology. That Barber quote down at the very bottom, I want you to note who published that book, the American Psychological Association. Then, so we know there's psychological control of the children and how it occurs. The way the narcissistic borderline parent gets the child to reject the other parent isn't by bad-mouthing the other parent. A lot of people think it's by criticizing. No, that's not how it happens. How it happens is get the child to believe that they're being victimized by the other parent. So let's say the child goes off and spends a visitation period with their mom, comes back to the narcissistic dad, and the dad starts questioning the child. How are things at your mom's house? Fine, everything is good. Really, you guys didn't get into a fight? No fight. Really, no arguments about anything? Now, if the child doesn't criticize the other parent, then the narcissistic dad's going to stay on it, and if she doesn't do it, he's going to get cold, he's going to get rejecting, he's going to communicate to the child, you didn't do the right thing. You didn't give me a criticism of the other parent. The moment the child realizes that, the child knows what the dad's wanting. They're wanting a criticism of mom. Well, it was kind of boring over at mom's house. That's all it takes, is just a little criticism. The dad is then going to inflame that and say, oh my God, I can't believe she doesn't have things planned for you. She's so selfish, she only thinks of herself. She never considers what anybody else wants. Now, it looks to the child and to all the world as if it's the child criticizing the parent, and that parent's just being supportive of the child. No, it's incredibly manipulative. Narcissistics and borderline personalities are the best at manipulation. You get the criticism out of the child, then you come in and support it, and you look like the nurturing parent, and the criticism's coming from the child, and all the nasty stuff that you're doing is hidden underneath the child. Notice what I said in that. Oh my gosh, she's so self-centered. She never considers what anybody else. He's criticizing the other mom. He's giving the child a framework for denigrating the mother. But it doesn't look like it, because it's the child who said it was born. And he's just being understanding. And you do that for a couple months, year. That child knows the story. That child knows the routine. They come back from a visit with mom's house. Dad says, how are things at mom? Oh, she was so selfish. She didn't listen to me. She didn't... Gives the dad what he wants, and then the dad starts to go. And so the way that the father, or the way that the mother, the borderline mother, creates the rejection of the other parent is by getting the child to believe they're being victimized by normal range parenting.